You think your seafood is fresh. In the ports of Los Angeles and Miami, the CBP just found something that does not belong on your plate. Cesium-137. Rusty shipping containers stacked 40 feet high in the port of Los Angeles hold the first clue in this investigation. Cesium-137 is not a chemical additive. It is not a pesticide residue. It is the radioactive ghost of nuclear disasters and illegal industrial dumping that contaminated the waterways of Southeast Asia decades before this shrimp ever reached your freezer. In 1986, the Chernobyl fallout cloud drifted east and deposited cesium across parts of Central Asia. In 2011, the Fukushima Daiichi meltdown released an estimated 27 petabecquerels of cesium-137 directly into the Pacific Ocean. But the contamination story in the shrimp farming regions of Vietnam, Thailand, and India did not start with Fukushima. It started with illegal radioactive waste dumping in regional rivers and coastal deltas throughout the 1990s and the 2000s. Industrial facilities across the region discarded radiological materials into drainage systems, and that contaminated water fed into the coastal estuaries where the shrimp farms sit. The water flows in. The shrimp absorb it. On February 18, 2026, the H&N Group issued a voluntary recall confirming that cesium-137 had been detected in frozen cooked shrimp sold under the Walmart Great Value label and Kroger store brands across the continental United States. The product made it to your cart anyway. A scientist in a white laboratory coat examining shrimp tissue samples under a fluorescence microscope reveals the biological horror at the center of this story. Here is how bioaccumulation works. And pay attention, because this is the part the industry does not want you to understand. Cesium-137 has an atomic radius almost identical to potassium. Your cells cannot tell the difference. Every cell in your body has potassium channels, microscopic doorways in the cell membrane that open specifically to let potassium inside. Potassium is essential. Your heart uses it to regulate its rhythm. Your neurons use it to fire signals. Your muscles use it to contract. So when cesium-137 arrives in your bloodstream, your cells roll out the red carpet. They open those potassium channels and they pull the cesium right in. Imagine a master key cut to fit every lock in your house, except that key is radioactive, and it is going to sit in your furniture and emit gamma radiation for the next 30 years. That is what cesium-137 does inside human tissue. Its biological half-life, the time it takes your body to eliminate half of what was absorbed, is between 70 and 110 days. During each of those days, it is emitting ionizing radiation from inside your muscle cells. Shrimp are bioaccumulators by nature. A single shrimp at the bottom of the food chain filters enormous volumes of contaminated water through its body tissues across its short lifespan. The cesium concentration in its muscle tissue ends up far higher than the cesium concentration in the surrounding water. You are not eating the ocean. You are eating a concentrated radioactive extract of the ocean. Port inspection equipment, including handheld radiation spectrometers and full container gamma scanners at the Port of Rotterdam, stand in direct contrast to the empty dock inspection bays in Los Angeles and Miami. The Port of Rotterdam, which processes the majority of food imports entering the European Union, requires mandatory radiological screening for all seafood shipments from identified risk regions. The technology used is gamma spectrometry. It can identify specific radioactive isotopes, including cesium-137, in under 15 minutes per container. The European Union regulatory ceiling for cesium contamination in seafood sits at 1,000 becquerels per kilogram. If a shipment exceeds that number, it is seized. It does not get rerouted. It does not get a second opinion from the importer. The FDA in the United States currently has no enforceable federal radiation threshold specifically for imported shrimp as a product category. Port-level gamma scanning for food imports at American ports of entry is not mandatory. SBP relies primarily on document inspection and selective physical sampling, which means a contaminated container has a statistically low probability of being pulled for radiological testing at all. Now here is where the phenomenon called port shopping enters this investigation. When a contaminated shrimp shipment is flagged and rejected at Rotterdam or Hamburg, the exporter does not destroy the product. The exporter reroutes the shipment to a port with weaker screening infrastructure. This is documented. The FDA import refusal database shows over 230 shrimp shipments from Southeast Asia refused entry between 2022 and 2025. But refused shipments do not disappear from global trade. They migrate to the path of least resistance. And the United States, with no mandatory gamma screening protocol and a port inspection rate of less than 2% for food imports by volume, is the softest target on the map. Europe sets the standard. America absorbs the rejected inventory. A Walmart pricing strategy spreadsheet projected onto a boardroom screen in a glass tower in Bentonville, Arkansas, reveals the engine behind the contamination. The Great Value private label program operates on a brutal margin structure. The retail price point for Great Value frozen cooked shrimp sits at under $6 per pound. A pound of shrimp produced under European Union safety compliance costs an importer more than that to source before it ever touches a processing facility. To supply Walmart at that price, a Southeast Asian contract farmer operates under a margin war with no exit. Walmart sets the price. The farmer absorbs the cost pressure, and the cost pressure flows downhill directly into every decision made on the farm. Water quality monitoring costs money. Voluntary radiological testing costs money. Cold chain integrity during the 6,000-mile shipping process costs money. When the margin disappears, those monitoring systems disappear with it. The H&N Group, the importer named in the February 18, 2026 recall, operates as a middleman between the farms and the grocery chains. Their business model depends on moving volume at the lowest possible landed cost. Walmart gets deniability because the product was sourced through a supplier. The supplier gets deniability because the contamination originated at the farm level. The farm blames the waterway. And the cesium sits in your muscle tissue while the liability evaporates through 6 layers of a supply chain designed specifically to make accountability impossible. Wild-caught Gulf shrimp on ice at a Louisiana dockside market and Argentine red shrimp in a freezer case at a Costco warehouse represent your clean exit from this system. Gulf shrimp harvested off the coasts of Texas, Louisiana, and the Florida Panhandle come from FDA-regulated domestic federal waters with mandatory vessel traceability records and no radioactive contamination history. Argentine red shrimp come from the cold, deep Patagonian shelf, one of the lowest industrial contamination zones in the southern hemisphere, caught wild with no farm infrastructure and no proximity to radiological risk zones. Both are available. Both are traceable. Turn every frozen shrimp bag over. The country of origin label is federally required. If that label says Vietnam, India, Thailand, or Indonesia, and the brand is a grocery store private label like Great Value or a name owned by Kroger, put it down. The recall confirmed what the import refusal database had been showing for 3 years. The product failed. The system failed. The only thing that did not fail is the label on the back of the bag if you know how to read it. That label is your audit. That label is your evidence. One sentence printed in 7-point font on the back of a freezer bag is the difference between clean protein and a radioactive bioaccumulation event, your government allowed to reach your dinner table without a single mandatory scan. You think radioactive shrimp is the end. Wait until you see what is floating in your daily cup of tea. It is invisible. It boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It is releasing 11 billion plastic particles into your bloodstream. The next video on the plastic tea scam will make you throw your kettle in the trash immediately.